Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Marie. Today I'll be doing the books that I read for the month of May. I am completely aware that this video is incredibly late, but I have been just really busy with my personal life, just a lot of things I had to do, etc. So I'm finally able to actually film this video now. So anyway, let's just get right into it. So before I dive into the books I want to discuss in this video, as always I have a few stats here. The first one is number of books I read in the month of May, and that is 18 books, which is not the greatest. I don't know why. I think, well, part of it is because I was traveling, and the last week I was pretty much at Book Expo / BookCon, and so I was just incredibly busy for that entire time, and that was pretty much half of the month, I want to say, more than half of the month. And yeah, I don't know guys. And I've also been having some weird reading slump. I don't really know guys. It's been a really weird month, I want to say, definitely for my reading. But anyways, out of the 18 books that I read one ebook, which is not great, but kind of normal actually. I think this is pretty much my standard. I read 1 or 2 ebooks in a month and the rest are audiobooks and physical. But anyways, 1 ebook, 7 audiobooks, and 10 physical books. And then out of all the books that I rated 1 star, 1 2.5 star, 3 3-star, 1 3.5 star, 8 4 stars, and 4 5-star books. So I definitely have a lot of 4 and 5-star books this time around, which is actually really good. I'm really impressed by the number of books that I liked this month. So even though the total number wasn't the best, but at least I enjoyed a good number of the books that I read this past month. So as always, out of all the books that I read this past month, I have about 6 books I want to say that I want to discuss in the video. As always guys, just as an FYI, if you're new to my channel, this video is not meant to be a comprehensive wrap up of all the books that I read, because if I discuss all 18 books, then this video is going to take forever, and this is actually one of my lower months too. So when I read 20 to 30 books in a month, can you imagine how long those videos are going to be? So these books I read videos are not meant to be a comprehensive wrap up of all the books that I read. For all of that, you should go to my Goodreads because I do update that very regularly. So anyways, the first book that I want to discuss in this video is Stronger Than a Bronze Dragon by Mary Fan. I don't actually have my physical copy because I lent it to a friend, but I did read this as a physical copy. So this book is a YA Asian-inspired steampunk novel featuring a badass Chinese warrior battling some supernatural creatures. That is literally the one sentence, very quick gist of what this book is about. Specifically, this book follows a girl called Anlei who goes on this epic quest to protect her village. Initially, she goes on this quest to take back the river pearl that was stolen by this young thief, but it ended up being way more than she imagined. There's a lot of action, adventure, mythical creatures, as well as romance. So for this book, I gave it 4 stars. The one thing that really stood out to me was how unique this book was, because I have read steampunk novels before, but they're usually set in a Victorian era, usually in Europe, I want to say specifically in the UK. So to have a steampunk kind of novel that is Asian inspired, set in China, was just really unique and very different than what I've ever read before. And initially, to be perfectly honest, I went in this book with some low expectations because I had read a lot of Asian inspired fantasies recently and a lot of them were not the greatest, and so I wasn't sure what to expect from this one. I had high expectations before, but then I read all the ones that were not that great, so I was kind of hesitant about reading another one. But thankfully, this one was actually really good. One of my favorite parts about this book definitely was actually the relationship and dynamic between Anlei and Tai. Tai is a young thief, by the way, and I just liked how their banter was just so adorable and really natural in the beginning and the transition of that relationship, because like I already said in the synopsis, Anlei initially goes off on this quest to get back the river pearl from the young thief, and that was Tai. So in the beginning, there's a lot of mistrust between them, a lot of uncertainties, etc. And as I started to grow closer, there's a lot more trust and loyalty and friendship that developed between the two of them, and it was just done really well. But one thing I do want to say, and this is not a spoiler because at the end of the day, it's a YA, there's going to be romance. We all know that these two are the main romance couple basically, and so I did think that it was a little bit rushed towards the end. I really liked the transition of their friendship, their growing friendship, but I did think that it was a little bit rushed towards the end when they discovered that they liked each other way more than just friends. And to be fair though, that did kind of bother me, but not to the point where it actually impacted my reading experience. It was just something that I noticed and I was kind of like, I don't know if I really like that as much. And out of all the characters, my favorite would definitely be Anlei herself. She was just such a strong, badass female warrior, and she was just so strong and courageous, and I couldn't help but admire her. The one thing that I am most disappointed on, to be honest, is actually the role of the dragons. I mean, from the title of the book, you would think that the role of the dragons would be a lot more, and also I remember from the synopsis that there was a lot about like mechanical dragons and being involved, etc, etc, but to be honest, their role was actually incredibly small and minute. I honestly thought that they would play a much major role, but they didn't, and for a book that I was really excited for because I was like, oh, there's gonna be dragons in there, it was kind of disappointing because the dragons honestly did not play a very major role at all, actually. But overall though, I still really enjoyed this book. I think this is a great YA Asian inspired fantasy with a very strong female lead. So if you're like me and you have been disappointed recently with some of the not so great Asian inspired fantasy novels, then I definitely think you should check out this book because this one was actually really good. Then the next book that I want to discuss is Stepsister by Jennifer Donnelly. So this book is a Cinderella Battalion, but it doesn't focus on Cinderella herself, but instead her ugly stepsister, specifically Isabel. I'm not really sure which one she is, to be honest. She's the one, I think, where she cut off her toes in the movie. I don't remember if they actually did that in the Disney movie or if that was just only in the Grimm fairy tales, but anyways, she's the one who cut off her toes in this book at least. So for this book, I gave it 4 stars. This is definitely one of the better Cinderella retellings I have read in a while. I actually really liked how comprehensive it was, in the sense that I actually gave a really good backstory as to why the stepsisters were mean and cruel to Cinderella, their relationship with their mother, as well as finding out what happened to them after Cinderella left to marry the prince. And I thought that this book did a really good job discussing some of these important topics such as family, love, hope, fate, destiny, as well as the importance of a second chance. One aspect that I thought was done incredibly well was the importance of beauty and how people treat others based on how they look, which I think was a really good reflection on today's world. And it wasn't just about the importance of beauty, but the fact that because people tend to look at that first, they tend to overlook some of the other important qualities such as intelligence, bravery, etc. I also really liked the main character, Isabel. I thought that her character was really well fleshed out and very complex. I really loved reading about her courage and how incredibly smart she was with her reading and all her strategy thinking. So overall, I really enjoyed this book, and I definitely recommend it if you enjoy fairy tales or just retellings in general, as well as having a very strong female character. The next book that I want to discuss is I Love You So Muchi by Sarah Kuhn. This book is about a girl called Kimi who doesn't really know what she wants to do for college and her life actually. On one hand, she loves fashion and making clothes of herself and her friends, but on the other hand, her mother wants her to focus on her paintings and her drawings for this prestigious fine art school, and she believes that fashion is a distraction. And one day they get into some sort of argument, and by luck, this letter from Kimi's grandparents in Kyoto arrives inviting Kimi to go visit them. So she ends up going and meets her grandparents as well as Kyoto for the first time ever. And the rest of the book is just about her trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life, as well as trying to resolve this tension between her and her mother. This book was supposed to be very cute. That was my expectations going in, and overall I gave it 2.5 stars. For the most part, I was very disappointed because of the story itself. My biggest issue was the fact that this book is all about Kimi's journey trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life, her college, etc. And that's totally fine. Like, that's an acceptable, valid book. But the thing is, it was so obvious straight from the beginning what she was going to do and what she should do, that for me as a reader, it was just really hard for me to kind of continue reading about this girl trying to figure out her own life, and when me as a reader already knows what she should do with her own life. Like, it was so obvious from page 1. And so because of this, it made the book so predictable and so slow. And honestly, my only question is, why the fuck did it take her that long to figure it out? And another aspect that I was kind of confused about was her mother's stance on Kimi's love for fashion. So her mother wants Kimi to go into drawings and painting at this prestigious fine art school, and that's fine, obviously, like, whatever. But I just don't really understand why she thought that Kimi's love for fashion was not okay, because isn't Kimi kind of doing the same thing? She's still drawing and she's still sketching. It's just that she's sketching clothes, and she's actually going a step further by actually creating these clothes in person. So I don't know, I just thought it was a really weird reason as to why her mother was against her going into fashion without actually stating the fact that she was against her. It was just implied. But at the same time, like, I don't know why Kimi thought her mother was against her. I don't know. It was just a really weird relationship there, and a really weird situation that I felt like didn't really need to be a situation. I feel like it was a conflict that didn't need to be there. Like, it was a conflict where it came out of misunderstandings, and honestly wouldn't even have happened if they had just sat and talked about it. So also because of that, I didn't really understand the tension between Kimi and her mother as well. But there are two things that I did really like about this book. One was actually Kimi's relationship, or her growing relationship with her grandparents. It was just so wholesome and adorable to see. And the second thing that I really liked was the setting itself. I just really liked reading about Kimi's exploration with Kyoto and just traveling there and visiting there for the first time, and it was just really fun to see what she was going through, all the sights that she was seeing. So that was probably the two biggest parts that I liked about this book, but everything else about it was just not the greatest. I mean, the character was just really slow in the uptake. I don't know what's going on with her. Her tension, the conflicts didn't really need to be there to start off with, so I feel like the whole purpose of this book was a conflict that shouldn't even have been there. That's basically what I felt about this book. So anyways, this book was disappointing. I honestly had so much expectations for it. I thought it'd be just so fluffy. I thought it'd be adorable. I thought it'd be a great contemporary read with some great romance, which by the way was not even that great. It was just okay. I mean, Akira the guy was cute, but he wasn't anything special, I want to say. So anyways, this book was just kind of disappointing, guys. Then the next book that I want to discuss is Crown of Feathers by Nikki Palpretto. This book is about a girl called Veronica who dreams of becoming a phoenix writer. However, due to a war years prior between these two sisters, the world of warrior queens and phoenix writers came crashing down and basically disappeared. So Veronica is now alone with her sister trying to fulfill her dream until one day her sister betrays her and she finally decides to set off on her own to become a phoenix writer. So this was definitely one of the better fantasy books that I've read in a while. I give this book 4 stars. This book just really lived up to my expectations and I enjoyed it so much. My only issue that I had with this book was the fact that it started off really slow. I would say the first 150 pages of it was just really slow. There was just a lot of info dump on the world building as well as the history of what happened years ago. And the way how the information was all dumped together made it a little bit confusing at times. However, thankfully, once I got past the 150 page mark or so, things really picked up and I became so immersed with the characters and the story. My favorite part would definitely be the bond between the phoenix and the writer. There was just that level of trust that I really enjoyed reading about. Plus, I love reading about how both of them gain something from each other to make each other stronger together. Another favorite aspect would definitely be the character growth for Veronica. She went from this weak, timid, scared little girl, especially from her sister, to finally learning to stand up, speak up, and be brave. She basically went from a girl that I initially despised because I really hate weak characters to one of my favorite characters at the end of the book. Veronica's character journey from the beginning to the end was probably one of the best I have ever read. Overall, this book was just so good, guys. I loved it so much. Like, the reason why I gave it 4 stars was because it was just really slow in the beginning, 150 pages or so. If it wasn't for that though, I would have definitely given it 5 stars, and I'm so excited for the sequel. I'm actually so grateful to be part of the street team for that, so I'm excited to be promoting and marketing some of the sequel information, and I'm just so excited for that. Like, you guys have no idea how excited I am to be part of that. So anyways, the next book that I want to discuss is The Queen's Rising by Rebecca Ross. This book follows a 17-year-old girl called Brianna who has spent the last 7 years trying to figure out what her passion is. And in this world there are 5 passions: art, music, wit, knowledge, and dramatics. So after 7 years of trying to find out her own passion, the solstice finally arrives where she's supposed to find her own patron, but the worst thing happened and she is left without one. Months later though, she ends up somehow receiving the patronage of a disgraced lord. And from there, she ends up finding out more information on her own heritage, the delicate balance of a neighboring kingdom, and just so much more. There is magic, queendom, family, and romance in this book, and this book was so good. I think it was one of the best books I read recently, for sure. I gave it 5 stars. This book is just so underhyped and underloved. I feel like more people need to read this book, guys, like the series in general. I haven't picked the second one yet, but this book, guys, everything. Like, this book is everything. My favorite part though was definitely the slow burn romance. There is definitely one, and it was done so well, guys. Like, I loved it so much. It was just everything that I ever wished for, and I was just like, yes. Ugh, like, this romance, guys, best romance ever. And honestly, part of me just wants to pick up the sequel, mainly because I want to find out more about this romance and just embrace it a little bit more and just be more immersed with it just a little bit more. So I feel like this is a duology though, I'm not sure, but I just need more of that romance, guys. So I'm definitely going to pick up the sequel. partly because of that. I also really enjoyed Brianna's character, and I thought that she was so wonderfully developed. I loved her self-discovery, as well as the fact that she's technically one of the side characters in the whole scheme of things, and not really the chosen one, which I thought was actually really unique. She was also really relatable with her own struggles to figure herself out, as well as what she wants to do with her life. There was also this found family aspect that I loved so much. It was literally the most heartwarming and endearing thing that I've ever read. But I did find that the found family aspect to be a little bit rushed, just a tiny bit, especially during the development of it. But honestly, it did not hurt my experience at all while reading this book. I was still very much into it. It didn't really bother me, but I did feel that it was slightly rushed. And overall, guys, like I said already, this was definitely one of my favorite books that I read. I just cannot gush about this enough. I want everyone to read this. If you like fantasy, if you love a slow burn romance, if you love queendoms, like all that stuff, some hints of magic in there, this book, guys, is just so good. Like, if you love found family as well, because I feel like a lot of people do, this book is also really good in that aspect. And this book, guys, so good. So the last and final book that I want to discuss is the Orange series by Ichigo Takano. So this series, guys, is so good. Like, I am just impressed by the drawings, the story, the characters, like everything was just so good. It was very emotional as well, and I am just really impressed. I feel like I should just listen to everyone when they say that this book was really good, because I came into it with some trepidation, to be honest, because I was like, is it really that good? But it is so good, guys. Like, I gave the whole series 5 stars. So this book is about a girl called Naho who 10 years later, she has this huge regret about something that happened during high school. She ends up sending a letter back to herself 10 years in the past. So there's some sort of like sci-fi time traveling thing involved in here as well. And this girl, 10 years earlier, she's in high school, she receives a letter, she doesn't know if it's true, if she should believe in it, etc. But everything in this letter was coming true. So she decides to start to believe in it, and she finds out that something terrible happens to one of her classmates. So this series just kind of focuses on her trying to prevent this great tragedy from happening, and this book was so good. Like, this whole series, guys, like, I love everything about it. The romance, like, the characters, their friendships, how tight-knit this group of students were together, and just everything, guys. Like, I don't want to discuss anymore because it's a lot of spoilers. I feel like it's really easy to spoil a manga. But yeah, this series, oh my god, guys, if you guys like something that is kind of emotional, very emotional actually. Some people were like, they cried. I didn't cry, but that's a different story. So like, this book is just really emotional with great friendships. There's this huge thing going on. It focuses a lot about like depression and kind of about self-guilt, and it's just done so well, guys. And this book, guys, I want to like reread this as soon as possible, because it's actually a really easy series to reread. I think I read the whole thing within like 2 days, and that's during Book Expo actually. Like, I read it like when I came back from Book Expo, and I was like, I need to finish this, and it was really fast, guys. So if you're looking for an awesome manga to add to your collection, beautiful drawings, very emotional, great characters, all that stuff, this book, guys, everything, guys, literally everything. I honestly cannot decide which book I like more, like this series versus The Queen's Rising, because they're both really good in different ways though. But definitely my 2 top books of this entire month. So anyways, those are all the books that I want to discuss in this video. Let me know down below if you have read any of the books that I mentioned in this video, if you agree with me, if you don't agree with me. If you haven't read them, which one do you want to pick up? But as always, if you like this video, please do give me a thumbs up, subscribe down below, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!